Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Nelson Hodges. Nelson, we first met him last, I believe it was April, when we had Glenda Anderson's memorial service. Nelson was the officiant, and he was so delightful as a person. And we said, so I went and asked him if he'd like to speak here, and much to our delight, he agreed to do so. Nelson has an interesting background. I asked him what it was he'd like me to tell you about him. He was a Congregationalist minister for 30 years. He says he retired when he was about 55 years of age, which was about 15 years ago. And he says, when I retired, I really retired. That meant I stopped doing sermons and weddings and so forth. So he says, coming here and talking today is like awakening that old Nelson, Reverend Nelson from way back. So that he says it's quite an experience. He's going to be up here in the Sunday pulpit again. Nelson, after he retired as a minister, though, he went into working as a psych trauma counselor and chaplain with a hospital corporation here locally. Did that for a number of years. He also, for the past 18 years, has worked in special education. He continues now to working for the Virginia Beach Public School System in special education. So with all that said, we got quite a treat in store for us today. Come on up, Nelson.
It's like a black hole, my father-in-law says, every time he deposits me at a trailhead before I go hiking the App Trail. He said, I walk into the wilderness, and he said, you disappear. Well, there's some truth in that. Bruce asked me to speak, and I pondered this morning on what to say, and the only thing I'm somewhat of an expert on is my own spiritual journey. I'm not an expert on yours. Don't even want yours. Got enough trouble with my own. Don't need to go there. So I thought I would share just some things that are particular to me and my spiritual journey. May be beneficial to you, may not. I'll let you decide. The forest I walk into and the trees that are surrounding me are of my own doing. I'm really not speaking about trees that are growing outside. I'm really talking about the forest that sort of lives within inside. And navigating that forest, how do I do that? What light do I use to shine a light on my pathway? How do I make that happen? That, for me, has been the spiritual journey. Whether I was actively involved in ministry or whether I was actively involved in psych trauma or whether I'm in special education. It doesn't make any difference. The journey continues. Regardless of what I am doing externally, it continues to go forward. So I thought I would share a story out of my background and out of my particular tradition regarding two men. The story is probably familiar to you. Two men go to the temple to pray. One is a Pharisee. The other is a publican. I'll start first with the publican. If you have any spiritual background in Christian circles, you probably know what a publican is. They're a tax collector. They're actually more than a tax collector. They had a very sophisticated system. In Rome would decide that this particular geographic region should bring about so much in tax revenue. And they parceled it out to bid all over the Roman Empire what a tax collector thinks he should get, or what they think they should get from a particular geographic region. The tax collector would then go bid on that. So let's just use some arbitrary numbers. The Roman Empire thinks this particular tax region should bring about $100,000, say, in tax revenue. So the publican would go bid on that. And let's say he would bid $95,000 to $100,000 of what the Romans think they should collect. And depending on the kind of tax year that the Romans were having, they could say that was too low or too high, and they would adjudge the bids accordingly and take the highest bid. So let's say a publican bid $100,000, right where they wanted it. And so he might get the bid if he was high bidder, and he has to cough up the $100,000 right then. Rome, over the next period of time, would pay interest to him on the money that they literally borrowed from him. It was his job now, and risk, to go and collect that money. If he collected more, it was profit. If he collected less, he was in the hole. Sort of like the stock market. Well, the community of Jews hated the publicans because obviously they had to get a profit. So they considered them in the realm of extortionists and others, etc. He's standing afar in the corner of the temple and he's praying. The other person is the Pharisee. I'm particularly hard on Pharisees because they represent the ultra-conservative side of things, and I'm not there. I'm way over there. But the Pharisee was also standing in the corner, and he was praying thus: Lord, I thank you that I am not like other people. I fast, I pray, I tithe everything, and I'm especially not like this publican over here. Wow. Every time I read that story, I'm just knocked over by how relevant it is today. I'm not going to get into politics. I promised myself I wouldn't do that. The Pharisee scares me. And he scares me not for why you might think. He scares me because he technically was doing everything right. He was praying. He was giving. He was fasting. He was in the right place. And he was a member of the right party. A party that protected the law and made sure that the law was carried out, so there would not be a violation among the Jews in regards to God's law. Over in the corner is the publican. And he doesn't say much, but he does say this: Lord, forgive me, for I am a sinner. And the Greek actually implies I am a chief sinner. Jesus said that one, the publican, is the one that went home justified. Now that scares me. In that, it seemed like this guy over here was doing all the right things. This guy over here was doing one thing right. And that one thing was truth, honesty. This is who I am. That won over place, tithing, giving, praying, party, everything. That one piece that this publican did won over all of the rest. Living in some function of truth. And that is my spiritual journey. Is truth. Not about the universe. I'm going to put on warm clothes if it gets cold. I'm going to take my clothes off if it gets hot. Okay? Not my argument at this point. Whether it's us creating global warming or the tilting of the earth, I don't know. I'm just going to use my clothes accordingly. I'll leave the universe to the universe. And it's not my truth about you. I haven't got time for you. I really don't. You take care of your drama. I'll take care of mine. The only thing I'm interested in is the truth about me. And that is substantial. Because we use every psychological method we can think of, maybe not by name, to avoid the truth. We don't like the truth about me. I don't know about you. But when I open up my pantry of looking at truth, things in there are not particularly pretty. Some are. Some aren't. How do I manage that? How do I deal with that? How do I stay on the spiritual journey and on the track that I'm supposed to be on and not fall off of it? And the only thing I can come to a conclusion about is it's the level of truth with which I deal with myself. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me on the track. Not you, not building, not praying, not giving, not tithing, not... just the truth, which is difficult to deal with. Jerry Garcia, everybody knows who Jerry Garcia is. Please say you do. I'm not that old, thank you. Admit it, come on, own it. Jerry Garcia said, truth is something you stumble into when you think you're going someplace else. Let me change that for you psychologically a little bit. Truth is something you stumble into when you think your motive is something else. My father put me on a journey many, many years ago when I was 12 years old, and I started listening to psychiatric tapes by a variety of people because that was the business my family was in. And so I started learning about motive at a very early age. Why do I do what I do? It's a very difficult concept to grasp. Do I really know who I am and why I do what I do, or am I just kind of cute and think that's all, behavior's all good? No, I really have to examine who I am. If I'm going to stay on the track of spiritual journey, I must do that. What do I think? Why do I think the things that I think? Where did that come from? I don't have always answers for that. I have more answers for my behavior than I do for why I think what I think. The issue is not so much why I think what I think, it is what I do with what I think. It is my behavior that lets me know the truth of things. I can say one thing to you, oh, you're just such my best friend, and not speak to you, and my behavior is more indicative of the reality of me than what I think or say in my mind. That's where I'm trying to dig to. Is can I get to that level of truth that deals with me in such a way? And the next thing about truth for me on my spiritual journey is this. The story comes out of Zen Buddhism, and I love it. I've carried it with me for 30 years. There are two monks walking in the forest. You notice there's a theme here. It has been raining very heavily. They come to an intersection that is full of mud and water, and at the intersection there is a very lovely young lady. And monk number 1 goes and picks up the lady and carries her across the water to the other side and sets her down. The second monk remains quiet, looks quizzically, and doesn't say anything. That night, when the 2 monks get to the temple lodging, and the second monk can hold it in no longer, he says to the first monk, "Why did you do that? Why did you pick her up and carry her across? You know that we are not supposed to have contact with women like that. It's dangerous." To which the first monk responds, "I deposited her on the other side. Are you still carrying her?" What baggage do you need to drop mentally to go on? Now, that's said in Zen Buddhism for the issues of attachment. If you're into Zen Buddhism, you're trying not to be attached to too much so that you can see clearly. And I'm here to tell you, the more attachments you have, the less you will see clearly. They got that part right. As a matter of fact, I assure you that none of you, when you leave here, are taking anything with you. Not the least of anything. No matter how clever it is and you like it and it makes you feel good, it's not going. So attachments really do cloud how we see ourselves. That's the issue. Can I wade through all of that? Can I get past all of that to the end? Many years ago, about 40, I was called to the home of a young lawyer. He was hated. He was hated in the community for the kind of law he practiced. No one liked him. But I was called to his home to have a talk with him. I was a very young cleric at the time. Probably didn't know left from right, up or down. But he wanted to talk to me. So I went. I sat in his home, and he came out with these words. "You know, we're a lot alike. We are both rascals." Ooh, boy, I flared up inside. I bristled. Didn't show it. But oh man, my inside, I am not. I went home and pondered that. And it was my second step in my long personal journey. The first step was sort of at 12. I sort of got on board at 12 through some interesting circumstances. But now, even after theological education, this gentleman hits me with that truth. And it didn't settle well. I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And I came to a conclusion. I am a rascal. And he could see it. That is the journey since that night I have been on, is to see myself better. To see myself clearly. To walk in a path where the inside of me and the outside of me is the same. Where you get to interpret me accurately because there's not a hidden agenda. That's my spiritual journey. That's where and why and how I stay on the path. Is the confrontation of myself to myself to say, ooh, that is me, or that isn't me. I can own that behavior, or I can't own that behavior. And to find out where I can be that does not cause conflict internally. If I take you and hook you up to a lie detector and you lie to me, the body does all kinds of things to say, The body wants to hear truth. The body wants to actually experience inside and outside the same. You violate that, you violate your body. You violate that, you violate the universe. You violate that, you violate your friends. That's where I'm at. I'm walking on a path that indicates, am I being true? Notice I didn't say, is my behavior good? I said, am I being true? I first have to recognize things before I can change things, if change is indicated. I have learned to travel light. I have learned to get rid of the baggage. I have learned to dispense with it. In my hiking, as I started, and I go into that black hole, I am carrying very little. Gone are the days when you'd carry 40 or 60 pounds of backpacking equipment. I travel for a week with food, water, clothing at 23 pounds. That's it. I travel so light, and you do not want to be around me at this moment. I only have one set of clothes. And 3 hours after I start walking, you do not want to be within 6, 7, 8 feet of me. The odor will knock you down. And it stays that way until I get off the trail. But I travel light. And it feels very good. So my spiritual journey is one of traveling very light, not having to worry about offenses, not having to worry about lies, not having to worry about those things that really create internal issues and weigh you down. When we do forgiveness at the back, we are carrying weight until we get rid of it. I got to move freely, lightly. When I come back off the trail, it's hilarious. I come back a different person every year. I am surprised that I have not got a divorce from this. I've been close. I come back and I have carried so little for so long that when I encounter other people, I have little time for them. You know, honey, could you do this? No, do it yourself. That's how I come back. I have been on a survival mode. You can do this. This is not hard. It changes you. When you go into the woods, and I do mean the woods of your personal life, and you start guiding through that chasm of things that have happened to you, including your DNA, including how you were raised, including the friends, including the abuse, including anything else that you want to package in that, as you navigate through that woods and you start getting rid of things, life changes for you. It just does. It makes you very, very different. John Muir said it, the clearest way into the universe is through a forest wilderness. I understand more today than I understood yesterday and understood 40 years ago when that man said, "You are a rascal." Just to finish that story, that man and I are still friends. We travel together. His family, my family, we've traveled to Europe together and the Caribbean together and all kinds of places. And the one thing I can count on him for is this: truth. When I met him, he wasn't on a spiritual journey. He has been now for about 35 years. But he sure helped me with mine. And that's my spiritual journey, and I'm not finished with it yet. I'm still unloading stuff, still throwing stuff away, and still seeking the truth in my own life. That's what I want. I want to end it in such a way that I can close my eyes and peacefully go. Without conflict to you, to me, or to the universe. If you look at my Facebook page, it says, my 3 goals in life: to be at peace with God, to be at peace with others, to be at peace with myself. I wish you a truthful journey so that you can stand in the corner and pray and walk home justified. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your goodness. Thank you for truth. We know that people wrestle with truth. We know Pilate even asked the question, what is truth? We know Jesus, on more than one occasion, heard truth from people and declared to them a new kingdom. So for all of us in this room, wherever we may journey, wherever we may go, may we walk in some knowledge of the truth of ourselves, that we may find and have all the light we need to make it to the end in a truthful manner, where the inside and the outside are the same. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.